welcome to another episode of Drive-In Double Feature. I'm Ryan.
I'm Nathan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into anything, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in-double-feature-podcast. It's a little extra content that Nathan and I give you, where we're going through some personality quizzes, going through some all-time best of lists, just something extra for you patrons out there that we want to give you as a thank you for supporting us. But do not worry, if you do not support us, it does not affect any regular content. But today, it's that time of the month, as I always say, and we're going to be talking about 1965's Frankenstein versus Baragon, or Frankenstein Conquers the World. And this is the next stop in our Toho series and our long journey to destroy all monsters, because I'm going to make you work for that one.
Yeah, I don't know why. But
Well, look, to be very serious is because there are monsters in Destroy All Monsters, despite how little screen time they have. But I want this to be like an Avengers event where you got to see all the movies. You're allowed.
Where I'm clapping, pointing, like there he is. Okay, yeah.
There's Varen. He's flying.
I think I can see that speck back there. Varen, there he is.
But it's Frankenstein is the monster. And this one,
Frankenstein doesn't appear in Destroy All Monsters, right?
Not Frankenstein, unfortunately.
That'd be kind of awesome.
That would be pretty cool, but no, it is not him. Baragon does make an appearance, but this is very much a Frankenstein movie. Mm-hmm. So, just getting in right into it, just to give you some context. So, going back to our original King Kong versus Godzilla discussion, where I had mentioned that the original pitch for the movie was from William O'Brien was that it was going to be King Kong versus a Frankenstein-like monster. And then instead they axed that part out because they had taken that script and axed that part out and put in Godzilla. And then after that movie, they're like, okay, well, who should we have Godzilla face? And originally they were going to have Godzilla versus Frankenstein. But then that turned into Godzilla versus Mothra. And so they were like, well, we got this Frankenstein monster. What are we going to do with it? Mm-hmm. And this was their answer, to make their own Frankenstein-like movie and to have him fight a Godzilla ground-like version of
a ground type Godzilla.
Yeah, ground type. There you go.
Yeah.
And this is what we got. One thing I will say, though, that probably the biggest egregious thing this movie does, they don't call it Frankenstein's monster. Nathan, don't you just hate it when people call it they don't call it Frankenstein's monster, not Frankenstein, or they call it Frankenstein and not Frankenstein's monster.
I thought it was so funny because you brought up that story before we watched it of it's called Frankenstein's monster, not Frankenstein. And then the whole movie, they're like, Frankenstein, that is his name. I usually don't get peeved by that, but it's an official movie, so it kind of peeved me a little. It was a little odd that his name was just Frankenstein.
His name is Frankenstein. That's his name.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this one.
You did. It's an oddball one for sure. There's moments I like. There's moments I don't like. But I think the Frankenstein stuff rocks. I do think that.
I've just gotten so invested into the actual human plot line, and
really,
because I really like it, because the movie starts. It starts in the 40s. Germany is transporting Frankenstein's heart to Japan, and on a Nazi sub.
Yeah, and the Japanese people are making fun of Hitler on the sub, which I think is so silly because they were allies. But whatever.
Maybe maybe it was you have some friends, but you make fun of them behind their back a little.
Yeah, I guess so. You know how I know how that is, but no, it is kind of like that. But it's so silly to me to think like, so the other movies are kind of about atomic bombs, especially Godzilla. He's created by radiation, but this one's like the war is central to this because Frankenstein is created by the Nazis pretty much. It's a Nazi thing mixed with the thing gets transported to Japan, and guess where it is? Guess where in Japan that thing could end up? Right in Hiroshima. So mixed radiation in a Nazi experiment, and you get Frankenstein.
Oh yeah, that it arrives in Japan, and they actually show Hiroshima getting bombed.
Yeah, God.
And that's the because when it arrives, it's just Frankenstein's heart. There's no body, but it gets hit by this nuclear radiation, and then years later, he turns into like a little boy, and he's just like a little homeless boy that apparently just has been eating neighborhood dogs and cats. And there's one really gruesome scene, which I didn't expect them to show, was these little elementary school kids like ran in their classroom. They're like getting ready for school, and then one of them sees and they like run out, and it's a mutilated corpse of their rabbit.
Yeah. No, it's kind of crazy, this little Frankenstein boy rolling around, who, if you listened, is they said he was Caucasian, so it is,
despite him looking very Japanese,
it's technically whiteface, I guess. I don't know. I don't. It's not like they even tried. I mean,
his skin wasn't even white though. He looked like a Japanese. All they did was they put green contacts in his eyes.
That's right. Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, he's Caucasian. Like, oh, obviously this is a Caucasian white boy.
Yeah. Well, speaking of white boys, our main character is a returning actor, Nick Adams, who is an American in this movie as our lead.
Yeah. I wonder if he made any sleazy proposals to this female co-star like he did in Monster Zero. No,
just Frankenstein. The guy who played Frankenstein.
He was underage. Oh, God.
Okay. I don't want to make any accusations.
Well, no, there was 2 actors that have portrayed Frankensteins in here. But, Nick Adams is back. And he's fine. You know, he's just...
Yeah.
He's just generic scientist.
Yeah. That's how it goes.
But it starts out as Frankenstein as a little boy, and then a couple scenes later, then he's big, and he gets bigger in every scene. And I really like moments like that because it's kind of playing up the horror elements a little bit. And there's like one scene where it looks like he's going to attack the female scientist, but he wants to just look at her necklace. Nick Adams is bashing him with a stool.
Yeah, it's just like they're scientists. They're trying to study this Frankenstein, and then as soon as like he gets a little crazy, Nick Adams is like, "All right, I'm taking the stool and I'm going to whack this guy." Frankenstein here takes a lot of abuse, like a lot of abuse. But no, I agree. I think this movie with Frankenstein, it plays up the horror elements. It's probably the most horror Toho kaiju movie that I've seen personally. And I think it does it well. I like there's like arm mutilation and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's one way they were trying to figure out how to prove that he was Frankenstein, is that they could chop off a limb, it will be able to live on its own, and he'll be able to grow back one. So his hand gets chopped off, and there's a scene where it's just like a hand crawling across the floor.
Yeah. It's cheesy, but I like it.
I like that stuff. I was like, okay, I'm sold.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't mention that Nick Adams, he has a really good line here where it's like, oh, Hiroshima sucked, but thank God it happened because we get to study what happens with radiation now. So he's thinking about it positively.
I mean, I was back in America when it happened, so I'm glad it happened when I was back home.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, here's the thing. This is written by Japanese people, so I don't know. It's just kind of silly, I guess.
Maybe he ad-libbed that line.
Yeah, and they're like, great job, Nick.
He starts growing at a really abnormal rate, and he goes and visits the female scientist at her house. He's just like peeping through the window, like, "Hey, what's up?"
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and it's blue screen too, so it like has
Yeah.
like all like the little edges on it. I like that he grows really fast, like because he's a little boy for what, like how however
Like
so
5 minutes.
yeah, and then he just gets so big really really fast, and like you said, I really love the effect of that to the point where he can look through windows and pick up people. Actually, there's a scene I really like where Frankenstein gets away and he's like not giant like kaiju big, but he's a bigger guy, and it's like a miniature set and he has to hide behind like walls and stuff, and the cars
Mm-hmm.
that go by are like little toy cars that drive by. I thought that effect was really neat. That had a lot of work put into it.
Yeah, I really like. I mean, just the cityscapes and the alone that they made was
Mm-hmm.
really good because it obviously because at this point it's an older, not older, but probably like a guy in his 20s that's playing it, and
Mm-hmm.
he's he's like a tall, lanky kind of guy, and it really does look like he's like a big monster in a city, and he's crouching around to make the force perspective look right and everything. It looked good.
Yeah, no, it looked really good. And like I said, I think the Frankenstein stuff in this is a lot of fun. There's something fun about just having like a dude doing all this. I forget at what point. So this movie, one of the alternate titles of it is Frankenstein versus Baragon. Baragon is like hardly in this thing, especially for the beginning of the movie. There's like one part where it kind of cuts in, like, "Oh, Baragon's here. He popped out," and then it's like, "Okay, then let's move on."
Well, yeah, actually, you don't even see Baragon on screen until
Mhm.
probably almost an hour into the movie, I
Really,
think.
God, that's
And
crazy.
uh, I so what do you think of the design of Baragon? Just the design part before we get into anything.
He's really goofy. He's a goofy looking guy. His little ears. I don't. I like the idea of a burrowing kaiju, and he walks around on four legs. But those ears, man, they're so silly looking. He's kind of a goofy looking guy.
I
you
liked it a lot.
do?
I like the suit. He looks like a little dog.
Oh, okay, gotcha, gotcha. You like the dog type.
Yeah,
Well,
Angerus, he's great.
I do love Angus.
But he burrows in under the sea. But they had that suit that they used for that one. It's that suit got used a lot. It actually got used in a bunch of other productions afterwards. So like when Ultraman happened after this, they it got used in a bunch of Ultramans, and they just repurposed heads and for all that. And
Gotcha.
and that suit actually lasted all the way up until Destroy All Monsters too, which almost never happens because it always those suits, they pretty much throw them out because they get so much abuse by the end of the movie.
Yes, yeah. And oh god, I guess no, I don't want to hop into the ending yet, but I really quickly I'll say Baragon gets the crap kicked out of him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a good showing for Baragon.
No.
Uh, but Baragon does show up, comes through like comes out from under the ground like, "Hey, what's up?" And it's there's one scene where Baragon is attacking this cabin or like a farm looking type of
Mm.
thing, and he goes and attacks this little like it's supposed to be a horse, but it's obviously like a little horse figurine, and it's just like
Yeah.
its little legs are moving, like
Yeah, it has the
and just
noises. It had me laughing, man. Like it looked like a toy like my little sister would have had growing up, of just like a plastic horse just stuck in there, just getting pushed around.
so there's another scene that's like that when so Frankenstein escapes and he's in the wilderness,
Mm-hmm.
and there's one scene where he sees like a boar,
Yes,
and
yeah.
it's just and again it's like a little toy boar, like a little figurine. It's just and you can even see the little swivel where it's just like spinning
Yes.
and Frankenstein's like, "Oh," and he just starts like making a little trap, like digging the hole and
Yeah.
putting leaves on top of it.
I like that he was
I like it was funny.
I like that he's smart enough to make traps. He doesn't seem like the smartest guy, but he knows how to live off the land because he even traps a tank later using like a pit like that.
Yeah, well, he's smart enough to make his own clothes because once he grows out of his clothes, he makes that little.
You're right.
He makes his own clothes.
That's pretty smart. You think that like he would just be like, no, I don't
can
need.
Can you make your own clothes, Nathan?
I never. No, I don't know what I'd do. I guess. Yeah, he'd have to make his own clothes. You know what? He's actually pretty bright, and they want to kill this guy. Well, one of the scientists really wants to kill this guy.
They want to kill him, but so there's that's like one of the ongoing themes is that Nick Adams and the female scientists don't want him to die because he's such a, they want to study him. Mm-hmm. And then one scientist and the military, they're pretty much like, this is a monster. We need to kill it.
Yeah.
But then when Baragon shows up, then that's when Frankenstein comes out. And it came, it showed that Frankenstein was actually on their side the whole time. That Frankenstein was a good guy. Yeah. But now we could talk about it. So Frankenstein and Baragon finally meet up, and it is about as one-sided as you can get.
This ending had me laughing. This fight, Baragon gets just the crap knocked out of him. Like he gets swung around by his tail. He gets lifted up, thrown. It's kind of a sight to see. I kind of loved it. It was nice to see just I guess somebody get absolutely destroyed for once.
Yeah. What I like though, there's little scenes where there's one scientist, he falls down off of a cliff and he's like sitting there and Baragon starts coming towards him and Baragon is like digging a hole and it's knocking all kinds of rocks on him. And then Frankenstein shoos Baragon away and he picks up the guy and he carries him to safety, which I was like, oh, that was a cool moment. So
yeah, I like that. Kind of a nice, like, oh yeah, he's a good guy. He cares about these people this whole time, even though they locked him up. But
hey, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, even though his arm fell off.
He didn't know. He didn't mind.
He didn't connect the two. He's like, oh, geez, so whoopsie, my bad.
He grew a new one. They did him a favor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, new and improved.
Right.
But no, I love the one shot of Baragon falling down the hill, and I'm pretty sure he gets hit right in the crotch at one point down the hill.
Well, he rolls down the hill, and then Frankenstein rips all the trees out and just starts throwing logs of trees, and Baragon's just like, it doesn't even look painful. It's just more like Baragon's just like, oh, this is annoying.
Yeah, I love it. See, I like this bit because it was kind of refreshing after some of the monster movies we've been watching recently to actually see some good destruction. Like the cities get destroyed, the forests get destroyed. It's not very plain where they're fighting. I feel like there's a lot more to it, and they actually use the environment for the fight. I like that.
Well, this is still mid 60s when they're still giving these types of movies large budgets. So I think this was this one had a larger budget than probably those later Godzillas when it's just like, oh, you were successful. We're taking money away from you because you were so successful.
Yeah, this is still like kaiju fever. Even that's so like is so crazy to me that they would even do that. Like, I mean, I guess this would be for the end of the podcast, but was this a success? Just really short. Did it make money? Do you know? No, I mean, 93 million yen. That sounds pretty good to me.
It's be about 2.9 million right there.
They made 2.9 million. Okay, in the 60s, that doesn't sound too bad.
And that might be just for Japan too.
Yeah, true. What was this? This did get a US release. Did you happen to get a hold of the dub before this one?
So the dub is on Internet Archive, and I did watch. I didn't watch all of it because, for the most part, the only reason I watched the Varan dub, like the whole thing, because it was like an entirely different movie. Mm-hmm. This one, largely unchanged. Some sound effects are different. I noticed, like they changed Baragon's roar again for some reason. They have a lot more English graphics. They once again credit Shiryo Honda as Eno Shiryo Honda.
Why can't they get that right? It's not that hard.
I don't know, but that's just what they do. And anyway, it's I thought the dub was actually pretty good though in terms of like vocal quality. I didn't.
Yeah,
I was
no.
like,
Usually the Godzilla later, like what we're getting into, the dubs are not bad, so that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I guess we should probably start talking about the ending of this movie.
Wow, it's so bizarre how this movie has different endings, right?
It does.
Yeah, because I was reading about this movie, and every time I read about the ending, I was like, that's not the ending that I saw. The ending I saw was bizarre.
So I the ending that Nathan and I saw was Frankenstein and Baragon are having it out, and eventually Frankenstein gets onto Baragon's back and chokes him out and snaps Baragon's neck and just kills him. And how the movie originally is supposed to end, and the original ending was that the ground was supposed to open up, and because of all the digging that Baragon had done, it made all these tunnels, and they were supposed to fall into the ground, and that was going to be in the movie. You didn't know what happened to either monster. But I guess Henry Saperstein, the American producer, really liked the octopus scene from King Kong versus Godzilla.
Didn't this already happen in another movie, right? Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but
I think you're remembering the squid part where it's they because originally Godzilla was going to be a giant squid.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And but yeah, they're like, oh well, we really like that. How about we have a giant octopus in this movie? And this octopus shows up in like the last 2 minutes of the movie.
It's
like
so
it's
silly.
so abrupt.
Yeah,
it's just like there's an octopus.
I'm not kidding. I looked away for like a few moments. I looked back, and it's Frankenstein looking at an octopus. And I was like, what just happened? Where did you come from? And Frankenstein's first instinct is, I'm gonna kick this guy's ass. Like he goes in, and what's so weird, what I find weird about this ending, it's definitely tacked on to make it so Frankenstein like goes away, because he kicks the crap out of Baragon. It's like no way Baragon even won that fight at all. But for some reason, this octopus is destroying Frankenstein. The human characters are over here like, oh, he's not going to make it out of this one. He'll keep living, but he's going to be fighting for the rest of his life.
Yeah, well, they kept talking about like he can't die, and then when this octopus shows up, then the octopus starts winning because he's got 8 tentacles, and he's dragging, and he drags Frankenstein underwater, and then Frankenstein just screams, just drowns. We don't ever see him, and then they're like, and then Nick Adams, who's been adamantly like we have to keep him alive, he's like, you know what? Maybe it's a good thing he did die.
Yeah, just a change of heart. It's I think this ending kind of like it's funny because it's kind of random and thrown in, but also I just felt so cheap, just a really cheap way to be like, oh, Frankenstein won the main fight, but he still can't win. He still has to go down somehow.
Oh, I forgot to mention too, before this octopus shows up, I was dying laughing before the octopus showed up, because after Frankenstein snaps Baragon's neck, he picks up Baragon and just slams him like off of a cliff, and and Baragon's like lifeless corpse just lands head first into this pile of rocks.
How does he survive to be and destroy all monsters?
Well, it's a second generation, kind of like how Godzilla is technically a second generation.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Another time.
Same for Varan and Rodan and all those guys, but
okay, makes sense.
But yeah, he just throws Baragon out like garbage, and then that's when it happens. But so that wasn't the original ending, like I said. And that ending kind of got tucked away, and then randomly this ending got shown on Japanese television accidentally, because apparently I guess that's not how the American version ends either, because even Henry Saperstein, when they saw the effects for this octopus, because in King Kong versus Godzilla it was a real octopus they had used, and it looked really good how he green screened it in and everything, but this time it's very much just about like what you would expect. It's just this little octopus with tentacle arms with like all held together by strings, and it doesn't look very good, and apparently they saw that and like, we don't want that. And but yeah, that's this ending got tacked on, and I don't know why it was on the version that we saw, but that's apparently now it's like a special feature on the main gods, like from Tokyo Shock. They have that ending now where you can watch that. You can watch you can watch Frankenstein fight a giant octopus and die.
But it's so interesting to me that Criterion would make this version the one version then, but it is what it is. That's just the thing with movies with multiple versions. You're just gonna, it's kind of like a grab bag. You're just gonna get like,
you never know what you're gonna get.
It's true. Someone said that once.
I believe it was
Baron.
Baron.
Oh, okay, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, he said that when he was flying away.
Yeah. You never know what you're gonna get. You know, Godzilla learned a nice lesson that day.
So, would you recommend this movie, Nathan?
I would. Yeah. So I think the Frankenstein stuff rocks. I mean, personally, I wasn't too big into the human plot line, but I think it's worth it just to see Baragon and Frankenstein fight at the end. I think that is a lot of fun. So, I say check it out.
I really liked it a lot. This is probably one of my favorite ones that we've covered so far. It's, I don't know where it would rank specifically, but it's definitely up there as one of the better ones. And apparently this is also Guillermo del Toro's favorite kaiju movie. And he said he loves Baragon.
Wow. You know what? I love Baragon too, and this movie. It's my favorite movie, as well as Shape of Water. No, I'm just kidding. But but no, that's cool. That's cool. It seems like one he would like.
Yeah. Well, I really liked it a lot. It's goofy. There's some light horror elements into it. It had everything I was looking for and more. So yes, I definitely recommend this one.
Nice.
All right, well, that wraps it up for Frankenstein Conquers the World, Frankenstein versus Baragon, whatever you want to call it. But Nathan, I'm looking at the calendar, and what are we going to be doing next week?
Next week? Oh, I'm feeling really unlucky, but it might be lucky for our listeners, because guess what? You're going to get 5 drive-in double feature episodes next week. Because guess what? Next week's Friday the 13th. We somehow we timed the show perfectly so we could have 2 Friday the 13th pretty close to each other, and we get to finish off the main Friday the 13th series. We get to go from 6 to 10, and with Jason X ending on Friday the 13th. But starting on the 9th, we're going to be going with Friday the 13th part 6. And Friday the 13th part 6, that is streaming around, but definitely a rental. But hey, you can come here, check it out with us.
They can come to your place? Does it come here?
No, don't come to my place. Watch it in your own time.
Just random people showing up. Hey, I'm here to watch Friday the 13th part 6.
Big fan. What times are you playing Friday the 13th part 6? Like a movie theater.
You just come sitting on your couch and watch the movie.
Oh yeah. But I don't know how many times I can watch that movie. It's just constantly running.
Just play it just leave your door unlocked and just have it playing on a loop, and then people can just come and watch it as they please.
You know what? That sounds like the perfect movie theater experience.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any thoughts, opinions you'd like to give us, please email us over at driveindoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at DIDFpod, and check out the Patreon at patreon.com/driveindoublefeaturepodcast. But until next time.
Until next time.